There is a quiet fear most men never admit, not of violence, but of being dismissed, interrupted, looked through. You feel it in rooms where your words carry no weight. That discomfort is not weakness, it is a signal. Some men move through life untouched by mockery, pressure, or manipulation. They are not louder, they are structured differently. This is the architecture of that structure. Lesson 1. A man who is never disrespected is first unprovocable. This is the foundation beneath the title. Not loud confidence, not physical threat, the absence of easy access to his reactions. Most men believe respect is taken by force or earned by achievement. They miss the simpler mechanism. People test boundaries the way children test doors. If the door moves, they push again. If it does not, they stop. An unprovocable man is a door that does not move. He sits in a meeting where someone interrupts him. The average man tightens his jaw, raises his voice, competes for space. The unprovocable man stops speaking. He looks, he waits. Silence stretches. The interrupter hears their own voice echo and becomes aware of their own noise. When the unprovocable man resumes, he does not raise volume. He lowers it. Now everyone leans in. Who holds power in that moment? At home, someone questions his decision with irritation. The provocable man defends, explains, escalates, negotiates his own authority. The unprovocable man listens without visible agitation. He answers once. No repetition, no justification spiral. The conversation either aligns or ends. Not because he demands obedience, but because he does not trade dignity for agreement. On the street, a stranger throws a casual insult, a test disguised as humor. The provocable man feels heat rise in his chest. He thinks retaliation equals strength. The unprovocable man keeps walking. No glance back, no muttered threat, no display. He understands something primitive. A man who cannot be baited cannot be controlled. This habit is built in small moments. When your phone vibrates, you do not jump. When someone delays, you do not fidget. When a plan changes, you do not complain. You train yourself to be slow where others are fast, still where others are restless. Over time, people sense it. They do not know why. They simply feel that pulling your strings is pointless. There is a quiet test every social environment runs. Who reacts? Who rushes to fill silence? Who explains themselves too much? Who laughs too quickly at jokes that are not funny? The one who reacts is placed lower in the invisible hierarchy. The one who remains measured rises without trying. Reaction is surrender disguised as strength. This is not about pretending not to feel. The unprovocable man feels everything: irritation, doubt, offense. But he keeps these inside long enough to choose his response. He does not hand strangers remote control access to his nervous system. He does not let emotional impulsivity broadcast his inner state. In real life, this looks simple: a delayed flight, a rude waiter, a colleague's sarcasm, a partner's emotional storm. The provocable man mirrors the chaos. The unprovocable man becomes the still point inside it. People lean toward what is stable. They respect what does not collapse under pressure. Most men avoid this path because it is uncomfortable. It requires swallowing the reflex to prove, to correct, to show dominance, to win every exchange. But the man who is never disrespected does not win exchanges. He makes them irrelevant. And slowly, rooms begin to adjust around him. Conversations soften, challenges reduce, boundaries become assumed rather than enforced, not because he demanded respect, but because no one ever found a handle to pull. Lesson 2. A man who is never disrespected does not negotiate his dignity. This is the second structure behind men who are untouchable. Most men bargain without realizing it. They soften their boundaries to keep peace. They tolerate small violations to avoid conflict. They laugh at remarks that sting. They accept interruptions, dismissals, casual disregard. Each small concession is remembered. Not consciously. Social memory is older than language. People learn how far they can go with you. The man who is never disrespected draws a line early, quietly, once. When a colleague speaks over him repeatedly, he does not raise his voice. He stops the conversation. Let me finish. Nothing more. No apology. No smile to dilute it. The room recalibrates. When a friend makes a cutting joke, he does not play along. He looks at them, neutral expression, and lets the silence expose what was said. The friend adjusts. When a partner crosses a boundary, he does not threaten or dramatize. He states the limit and the consequence. Then he follows through if needed. Consistency is what makes a boundary real. Most men fear being labeled difficult, so they compromise dignity to maintain access. They accept being spoken to carelessly, treated casually, valued conditionally. They believe endurance equals strength. It does not. Endurance without boundaries becomes permission. The untouchable man understands a simple pattern. Whatever you allow once becomes a proposal for what will be allowed again. He does not debate every infraction. He simply does not let them pass unnoticed. A raised eyebrow, a pause, a sentence spoken slower than comfortable. People feel the edge without it being announced. At work, he does not stay late every time to prove value. He sets expectations early. At home, he does not tolerate emotional volatility as normal communication. In friendships, he does not chase invitations or beg for inclusion. He chooses where he stands and lets others decide whether they meet him there. This is not aggression. Aggression seeks control over others. Boundaries protect control over self. The man who is never disrespected does not demand special treatment. He refuses mistreatment. There is a difference. One provokes resistance, the other creates clarity. People test limits instinctively, not because they are malicious, but because social hierarchies are always forming. The man with no boundaries is placed low, not out of cruelty, but because structure requires position. The man with calm, consistent limits is placed higher without raising his voice. He does not explain his boundaries repeatedly. He does not defend them. He does not soften them to appear agreeable. He states them once, acts accordingly, and lets reality do the teaching. Over time, people learn to approach him with respect before he asks for it. Dignity that must be defended was already compromised. This habit feels harsh at first. It feels like isolation. But slowly, something changes. Conversations become cleaner. Relationships become simpler. Interactions require less correction. The man who does not negotiate his dignity stops fighting for respect. He simply becomes the standard around him. And in the quiet moments when no one is watching, he notices something unfamiliar, a steadiness, a sense that he is no longer bracing for impact. Lesson 3. Men who are never disrespected control their attention. This is another pillar of being untouchable. Most men bleed attention without noticing. They look at every screen that lights up. They answer every message instantly. They turn their head when someone speaks, even when the words are meaningless. Their awareness is always available, always reachable, always open. And what is always available is always valued less. The untouchable man is different. His attention is not scattered. It is deliberate. When he speaks with someone, he is fully there. When he is working, he is unreachable. When he is resting, he is not half listening to noise around him. People feel this immediately. Being seen by him feels rare. Being heard by him feels earned. Not because he withholds as a tactic, but because his mind is not an open market. A man enters a room and scans it nervously, searching for reactions. He is already asking to be measured. Another man enters and looks at nothing in particular, as if he has nowhere urgent to be. He does not search. He does not chase eye contact. Others begin to notice him instead. Attention moves toward gravity. In conversation, most men rush to prove interest. They nod too fast. They speak too soon. They fill silence to avoid discomfort. The untouchable man lets silence exist. He listens longer than necessary. When he responds, it is concise, measured, clean. People adjust their own tempo to match his. He does not follow the rhythm of the room follows his. On devices, the difference is brutal. One man reacts to every notification like a servant to a bell. Another checks when he chooses. One lives in interruption, the other lives in sequence. Over months, their nervous systems diverge. One becomes twitchy, impatient, dependent on stimulation. The other becomes slow, grounded, difficult to rush. People instinctively respect what cannot be hurried. At work, he does not attend every conversation. He is selective. He is not omnipresent. He is present with intent. This makes his presence valuable. At home, he is not mentally elsewhere while physically there. He is either with you or not. No half-presence, no diluted awareness. This creates weight in simple moments. A question from him feels important because he does not ask many. Men fear missing out, so they stay open to everything. But when you are open to everything, you stand for nothing. The untouchable man closes doors to create rooms. He says no quickly, so yes has meaning. He ignores noise, so signal remains sharp. This habit is uncomfortable at first. Turning off the stream of stimulation exposes restlessness. Silence becomes loud. Stillness feels strange. Most men flee back to noise. That is why they remain easy to influence, easy to distract, easy to disrespect. A man who owns his attention owns his posture in the world. Attention is the currency of presence. Over time, people stop wasting words around him. They choose what to say. They prepare before speaking. They approach instead of summon. Not because he demands it, because his attention is not cheap. He sits, he listens, he decides where his awareness goes, and slowly everything around him becomes quieter without him asking. Lesson 4. A man who is never disrespected speaks only when there is weight behind his words. This is where most men collapse without realizing it. They talk too much. They explain too long. They narrate their thoughts as they form them. They fill space to relieve their own tension. And every unnecessary word lowers the perceived density of their presence. Noise is not power. Noise is leakage. Observe a group of men in casual conversation. One dominates the air with constant commentary. He jokes, complains, comments, reacts. The room is never quiet around him. Yet when he leaves, nothing changes. His words were motion without consequence. Another man speaks rarely. When he does, the room stills. People stop chewing, scrolling, shifting in their seats. His words land because they are not padded with excess. The untouchable man understands a brutal truth. If your words are abundant, they are assumed cheap. If they are scarce, they are weighed. He does not rush to share opinions. He does not interrupt to display intelligence. He does not volunteer information to feel included. He waits until there is something precise to deliver. This makes him unpredictable in the right way. People cannot pre-guess his response, so they listen. In conflict, the difference becomes sharper. The average man argues like a flood. Point after point, justification after justification. He believes volume will replace authority. The untouchable man states one sentence. If it is not heard, he repeats it once. If it is still ignored, he disengages. He does not chase agreement. He does not drown the room in persuasion. He trusts that what is true does not need a crowd of words to stand. In leadership, he does not motivate. He does not inspire. He gives direction. Clean, simple, non-emotional. The emotionally hungry man needs applause. The untouchable man needs clarity. His sentences are brief enough to remember and firm enough to settle in the mind. People carry them afterward without trying. In relationships, he does not explain his entire internal world. He shares selectively. He does not narrate every feeling. He does not overshare to seek closeness. This creates gravity. Mystery is not manipulation when it is natural. It is simply the result of a man who is not leaking his interior life into every moment. Most men fear silence because silence exposes insecurity. So they talk, they joke, they fill. The untouchable man lets silence remain. He allows others to feel their own nervousness. He does not rescue them from it. This alone rearranges social order. The man who can sit in silence without reaching for noise is the man who cannot be easily pushed. There is a subtle shift that happens over time. People begin to quote him. Not because he is trying to be quotable, but because he speaks in distilled form. No excess, no fluff, just essence. His words stick because they are not diluted. Words gain weight when silence surrounds them. This habit requires discipline. It means resisting the urge to prove intelligence, resisting the temptation to entertain, resisting the comfort of constant expression. But the reward is simple. When he finally speaks, nobody interrupts, nobody dismisses, nobody scrolls past. They listen, and listening is the root of respect. He sits back, says nothing, watches the room move around him, and when he finally opens his mouth, the air changes. Lesson 5. A man who is never disrespected does not seek validation. This is the habit that separates the untouchable from the performative. Most men live with a quiet hunger to be acknowledged. They want their effort noticed, their opinions affirmed, their presence appreciated. This hunger leaks through behavior, over-explaining, overachieving, over-giving. Each is a request disguised as generosity, and requests place a man in a lower position than he realizes. Watch how validation-seeking appears. A man tells a story and watches faces more than he watches his own words. He laughs early to signal where others should laugh. He glances for approval after making a decision. He feels uneasy when his effort passes without praise. None of this is loud, but it is visible, and what is visible becomes measurable. What is measurable becomes rankable. The man who seeks validation is always slightly beneath the one who does not need it. The untouchable man acts without waiting for applause. He completes work because it is required, not because it will be recognized. He makes decisions because they are correct, not because they will be liked. He speaks when something must be said, not when something must be heard. If praise arrives, he receives it without inflation. If silence follows, he remains unchanged. This neutrality is rare, and rarity commands attention. In relationships, the validation-seeking man asks indirectly, "Am I enough?" He fishes for reassurance. He adjusts himself to remain desirable. He performs stability rather than embodying it. The untouchable man does not audition. He shows who he is. If accepted, he stays. If not, he leaves. Not dramatically, not bitterly, simply without negotiation. His self-worth is not a public project. At work, the average man wants credit. He wants his name attached. He wants acknowledgement in meetings. The untouchable man wants outcomes. He does not need to be seen to be effective. And because he does not chase visibility, visibility eventually finds him. People talk about him when he is not in the room, not because he demanded recognition, but because his impact left a mark. Men fear being invisible, so they flash signals, opinions, achievements, sacrifices. They think visibility equals respect, but visibility without gravity becomes noise. The untouchable man allows himself to be underestimated temporarily. He does not correct assumptions immediately. He lets time reveal what he carries. When reality speaks for him, the respect is deeper because it was discovered, not advertised. This habit is uncomfortable because it removes emotional crutches. No praise to lean on, no reassurance to collect, no external mirror to confirm identity. The man who survives this becomes internally referenced. He does not ask, "How am I doing?" He asks, "Is this aligned with my standard?" That is a private question, and private questions build private strength. Approval is borrowed identity. Once this habit takes root, something changes in social dynamics. People sense a man who is not trying to be impressive. They trust him more. They test him less. They feel that he cannot be manipulated with compliments or threatened with exclusion. His position stabilizes, not because he climbed, but because he stopped chasing. He sits in the room, not performing, not waiting, not signaling, simply present. And presence without need becomes a quiet form of authority that does not ask to be respected, yet rarely is not. Lesson 6. A man who is never disrespected chooses when to be accessible. This habit separates men who are pulled by the world from men who decide where they stand in it. Most men live in constant availability. Their time is open, their attention is open, their presence is open. They respond immediately. They adjust instantly. They move when summoned. This seems polite. It is read as low value. The untouchable man is not constantly reachable, not out of arrogance, out of order. He answers when it is appropriate, not when it is demanded. He returns messages in sequence, not in panic. He schedules rather than reacts. He is not in a hurry to prove usefulness. People sense this and adjust their expectations upward. Observe two men receiving the same request. One replies instantly, changing his plans to accommodate. The other says, "I will get back to you," and does. The first appears eager. The second appears structured. Over time, the first is taken for granted. The second is respected. Availability that is unlimited becomes invisible. Availability that is measured becomes valuable. In professional life, this is decisive. The average man stays late whenever asked, answers emails at any hour, joins every meeting. He believes this shows dedication. In reality, it shows he has no perimeter. The untouchable man defines his window. He is fully present within it. Outside of it, he is unreachable. This forces efficiency around him. People prepare before approaching him. His time shapes the environment. In relationships, constant accessibility kills polarity. The validation-seeking man answers instantly, always ready, always on call. His presence becomes predictable. Predictability lowers attention. The untouchable man has his own rhythm. He is warm when present, but he is not permanently available. This is not manipulation. It is the natural consequence of a life with structure. Men fear this habit because they fear losing connection. They fear being forgotten, so they keep themselves within reach, always. But connection that requires constant availability is dependency, not respect. The untouchable man allows space, and in that space, others feel his absence. Absence reveals value more than presence ever could. This habit begins privately. He does not answer notifications immediately. He does not check his phone compulsively. He does not allow every conversation to interrupt his focus. He builds internal walls, not to isolate, to define. Accessibility without boundaries becomes disposability. Over time, people adjust to him. They learn he is not to be summoned. They approach with intention. They wait their turn. They plan their words. His presence becomes an event, not background noise. He is not distant. He is deliberate. And deliberate men are rarely dismissed. He remains still inside his schedule, his structure, his chosen availability. And the world, sensing firmness where others remain soft, reorganizes itself quietly around him. Lesson 7. A man who is never disrespected does not announce his competence. He lets it arrive ahead of him. This is the habit that turns ability into quiet dominance. Most men broadcast their skills early. They list achievements. They reference experience. They explain what they can do before anyone asks. They believe this prevents doubt. It does the opposite. It places their words in front of their proof. And words without proof are negotiable. The untouchable man moves differently. He does not declare expertise. He demonstrates it when the moment requires it. In a meeting, others speak first. They offer ideas, fill the air, display their thinking. He listens. When he finally speaks, the solution is clear, structured, usable, not impressive, effective. The room shifts, not because he demanded authority, but because reality just confirmed it. In physical work, the difference is visible. One man tells you how strong he is. Another lifts without comment. One describes his discipline. Another arrives already prepared. One explains his strategy. Another executes it silently. People do not respect claims. They respect outcomes. And the untouchable man trusts outcomes to speak. Most men are impatient. They want recognition before results. They want status before substance. So they advertise potential. Potential is cheap. Everyone has it. Execution is rare. The man who is never disrespected builds quietly. He studies when no one is watching. He refines when no one applauds. He prepares for rooms he has not entered yet. When he finally arrives, he does not need to introduce himself. His work does. In relationships, competence appears as reliability. The average man promises. The untouchable man delivers. He does not say he will be there. He is there. He does not describe how he handles pressure. He handles it. He does not talk about loyalty. He stays consistent. Over time, trust settles without negotiation, and trust is a form of respect that cannot be forced. Men fear being overlooked, so they signal constantly, "Look at me, notice me, acknowledge me." But signaling replaces substance with noise. The untouchable man accepts temporary invisibility. He builds in silence. He lets time compress his effort into presence. When he is finally noticed, the respect is deep, because it was discovered, not requested. This habit is demanding. It requires enduring periods where no one claps, where no one comments, where progress feels unseen. Most men abandon the process here. They return to signaling. They return to talking. They return to performing. That is why so few men are untouchable. The path is quiet and unrewarded until suddenly it is neither. Competence is authority that needs no announcement. Over time, people stop testing him. They stop questioning his decisions. They stop challenging his role, not because he resists them, but because experience has already answered for him. He does not raise his voice. He does not display dominance. He simply stands on a foundation that does not crack. He walks into spaces without introduction. He sits without needing to be acknowledged. He speaks without needing to persuade. And slowly, the environment reorganizes around his demonstrated weight, his presence formed from work done in silence, still unfolding, still building, still moving beneath the surface. Lesson 8. A man who is never disrespected is willing to walk away. This is the habit that locks all others into place. Most men stay where they are tolerated, not respected. They remain in conversations that drain them, relationships that diminish them, environments that erode them. They stay because they fear loss, loss of connection, loss of opportunity, loss of identity, and that fear is visible. Anything visible can be leveraged. Anything leveraged can be controlled. The untouchable man is not anchored by desperation. He does not cling. He does not hold on to situations that cost him posture. When a discussion becomes circular, he exits. When a workplace rewards noise over clarity, he leaves. When a relationship crosses his boundaries repeatedly, he steps away. Not with theatrics, not with threats, simply with motion. His absence is final because it was chosen, not forced. Observe a man in a group where jokes turn sharp. The average man stays and absorbs it, pretending it does not cut. He laughs to prove resilience. The untouchable man stands up, nods once, and leaves the table. No explanation, no complaint. The room is left with its own reflection. And something important happens. They remember him differently after that. Not as someone who endured, but as someone who decided. Most men negotiate their place. They bargain. If I tolerate this, I will be accepted. The untouchable man does not bargain. He evaluates. Does this environment align with my standard or not? If not, he removes himself. This alone filters his life. He does not need to demand respect inside spaces that are structured to deny it. He finds or builds spaces where respect is natural. In work, this appears as refusing roles that undercut integrity. In friendships, it appears as leaving circles that reward mockery. In romance, it appears as ending dynamics that require him to shrink. He does not wait for permission to exit. He does not need agreement to depart. He simply goes. Men fear walking away because they think scarcity rules life, that there will be no next room, no next table, no next connection, so they endure. Endurance without choice becomes submission. The untouchable man trusts that maintaining posture is more important than maintaining access. Access without dignity is a cheap victory. This habit is quiet but ruthless. It removes the possibility of long-term disrespect because it removes prolonged exposure to it. People sense this quickly. They feel that if they cross a line, he will not argue, he will not escalate, he will vanish from the situation, and that possibility alone recalibrates behavior around him. Attachment is the leash others hold. This is not isolation. He still connects, still commits, still participates, but his participation is voluntary at every stage. He is not trapped by history, guilt, obligation, or fear of being alone. He remains because he chooses to, and choice carries weight. So he sits in rooms without gripping the chair. He speaks in conversations without needing to stay. He enters relationships without chaining himself to them. And in that freedom, there is a firmness that cannot be cornered, a presence that cannot be caged, a man who remains by decision alone, still, steady, unconstrained. Lesson 9. A man who is never disrespected does not chase attention. He lets attention come to him. This habit is the final refinement before untouchability becomes natural. Most men hunt visibility. They speak to be noticed. They dress to be seen. They post to be acknowledged. They adjust their behavior based on imagined eyes. Even when no one is watching, they perform for a phantom audience. And performance is dependence. The untouchable man is not performing. He does not act for observers. He acts for alignment with his own standard. When he enters a room, he does not seek the center. He chooses a place and occupies it fully. He does not scan for who is watching. He does not angle his body toward approval. He simply exists where he is. And because he is not seeking attention, attention becomes curious about him. Watch two men in a gathering. One tells stories loudly. He gestures broadly. He laughs before the punchline. He ensures all eyes find him. For a moment, they do. Then the energy fades. Another man sits quietly, listening. When he speaks, he says little. When he laughs, it is brief. He is not trying to capture the room. Slowly, eyes drift toward him anyway, not because he pulled them, but because stillness draws observation. Chasing attention reveals need. Need lowers posture. The untouchable man has no urgency to be seen. He is comfortable not being the focal point. This confuses environments built on performance. People begin to wonder who he is, what he thinks, why he is so unaffected by the social race around him. Curiosity grows. Respect follows curiosity when nothing desperate is found underneath. In the digital world, this habit is even clearer. Most men post constantly, checking reactions, adjusting their tone to harvest response. Their sense of self becomes entangled with metrics. The untouchable man shares rarely. When he does, it is deliberate. He does not check repeatedly. He does not adjust himself to fit trends. His presence online feels like a statement, not a plea. Men fear being ignored, so they chase, they interrupt, they exaggerate, they inflate stories. They perform outrage or humor to stay visible. The untouchable man accepts being overlooked temporarily. He trusts that consistency carries farther than spectacle. He would rather be slowly discovered than loudly advertised. This habit creates a subtle shift. When he finally chooses to step forward, it is noticed. When he chooses to speak, it is heard. When he chooses to lead, it feels natural, because he has not exhausted attention by constantly demanding it. Those who chase the spotlight are owned by it. He sits at the edge of rooms without insecurity. He watches conversations without needing to steer them. He participates without competing. And in that posture, he becomes the kind of man people reference quietly, mention in passing, seek out later. He does not ask to be seen, and that is precisely why he is. Lesson 10. A man who is never disrespected lives by a private standard. This is the final habit, the one that makes all others stable. Most men live by external calibration. They adjust their behavior based on reactions. They change tone depending on who is present. They loosen principles to fit rooms. Their identity shifts with audience. And what shifts can be pushed. The untouchable man does not borrow his standard from the environment. He carries it into the environment. He does not ask, "What is acceptable here?" He asks, "Does this meet my line?" If yes, he participates. If not, he disengages. This creates a consistent gravity. People do not experience different versions of him. They experience one man, and consistency is the foundation of trust. In practice, this looks simple. He does not laugh at jokes that degrade others, even if everyone else does. He does not exaggerate his achievements, even if the room rewards bravado. He does not pretend to agree, even if disagreement costs him approval. He does not adapt his ethics to match convenience. His behavior does not swing with temperature, and because of this, people know where he stands without asking. Most men fear holding a private standard because it risks isolation. If I do not adjust, I may be excluded. So they bend. Slightly at first, then more. Over time, they forget what their original line was. They become socially fluid, adaptable, agreeable, and deeply manipulable. The untouchable man accepts the cost of firmness. He would rather be alone than misaligned. This habit is not stubbornness. He still listens, he still updates, he still learns, but he does not outsource his center. He evaluates new information against his core, not against social pressure. If he changes, it is because he decided, not because he was nudged. In relationships, this creates safety. Others know he will not flip suddenly. In work, this creates reliability. Colleagues know he will not betray principles for convenience. In conflict, this creates calm. Opponents know he will not fold under noise. The man with a private standard becomes predictable in the only way that matters. His integrity does not move. Men believe respect is demanded outwardly. They miss that true respect is earned inwardly first. A man who respects his own line cannot be easily disrespected by others. Their opinions bounce off a surface already solid. Stand for something before you stand anywhere. He wakes, he acts, he speaks, he rests, all within a framework that was chosen long ago and refined slowly, not rigid, not fragile, simply his. And so he moves through life without bracing for insult, without craving praise, without performing for approval. Not untouchable because others are small, untouchable because he is complete within himself, steady, consistent, present, carrying a quiet standard that never needs announcement, only lived, unfolding forward, unbroken. Before you leave, make a decision. Most men scroll past words like these and return to the noise that keeps them ordinary. If you are still here, it means something in you recognized this path. Subscribe to the channel, not for entertainment, for alignment. And in the comments, write one habit from this series that you know exposed you. Not for me, for yourself. We move forward quietly from here.